The sky was filled with smoke, fire, and falling debris. The ground shook as explosions echoed in the distance. Kyle, a young human soldier, moved carefully through the ruined battlefield. His uniform was torn, and his face was covered in dust and sweat. He held his weapon tight, but there were no enemies in sight, only silence and destruction. He had been separated from his unit hours ago. The enemy's final attack had come fast and hard. Now Kyle wasn't sure if anyone else from his side was even alive. Still, he kept going. He had to find survivors. That was his mission now. As he walked over the burned remains of a fallen tank, he heard a weak sound. It was faint, like a soft cry. He stopped. His eyes scanned the broken rocks and shattered metal around him. Then he saw her. Lying half-buried. Under rubble was a female figure dressed in dark silver armor. Her skin had a pale violet color, and her long silver hair was stained with blood. Even though Kyle had never seen her face before, he recognized what she was. A Jaren royal soldier. No, not just a soldier. A symbol on her chest plate confirmed it. She was a princess of the Jaren Empire. Kyle froze. The war between Earth and the Jaren had lasted for years. Her people were strong, proud, and never showed weakness. Yet here she was, wounded, helpless, and breathing faintly. He should have walked away. She was the enemy, but something about the way she looked up at him made him stop. Her violet eyes, filled with pain and fear, met his. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She tried to lift her hand toward him, and then collapsed. Kyle stood still for a moment, his heart pounding. He looked around. No one else was there. No other human. No other alien. Just him and her. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon. He knelt beside her and gently checked her pulse. It was weak. She had a deep wound across her side. If she didn't get help soon, she would die. Kyle felt a battle inside his heart. She was an enemy leader. Saving her might mean risking everything, but he also remembered the words of his old commander. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. With a sigh, he took off his backpack and opened his medkit. He worked quickly, cleaning the wound and wrapping it with gauze. She groaned softly in pain but didn't wake. Then he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, but every step felt heavier. The cold wind cut through his uniform, but he kept moving. He didn't know where he was going yet, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't leave her behind. As he walked toward the distant hills, a small blinking light on her wrist armor began to flash. Kyle didn't notice it at first, but far away, in the shadows of the mountains, something else did. A silent signal had been sent, and someone, or something, was now coming. Kyle pushed forward through the cold wind, holding the alien princess tightly in his arms. His arms ached, but he didn't stop. The battlefield behind him had become quiet, too quiet. The war zone was no longer active, but that didn't mean it was safe. The princess was still unconscious. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder. She was breathing, but it was shallow and uneven. Kyle looked down at her face. It was peaceful now, but she had cried out in pain earlier, even in her sleep. He had to find shelter, and fast. Up ahead, he saw the remains of a broken transport ship. It had crashed against a rocky hill and left part of its metal frame standing. It wasn't much, but it could give them cover from the cold wind and keep them hidden. Kyle moved toward it, stepped inside the bent doorway, and gently laid her down on a blanket from his gear. He quickly checked her wound. The bleeding had slowed, but her skin was still pale. He cleaned the cut again and gave her a small dose of pain relief from his medkit. He wasn't a doctor, but he had enough training to keep her alive, for now. Suddenly, Kyle noticed a soft, blinking light on her wrist. It wasn't part of her injury. It was a signal device. His eyes narrowed. Had he triggered something? He touched the wrist panel carefully. A faint screen lit up with alien symbols he didn't understand. Then a voice spoke softly from the device, repeating the same phrase in her language. Kyle didn't know the words, but it sounded like a warning. Or a call. He stepped back. If it was a distress signal, someone might be coming. For her. But who? Friends, enemies? Would they kill him on sight for touching their princess? Or worse, was it a tracker set by those who betrayed her? Kyle didn't like any of the answers. He needed to move again, but the princess couldn't travel in her condition. As he thought about what to do, the princess stirred. Her eyes slowly opened. She looked confused, weak, and afraid. When she saw him, she tried to sit up but winced in pain. Easy, Kyle said gently. You're safe. For now. She blinked at him, trying to understand. Then she spoke, her voice soft and rough. Why save me? Kyle hesitated. I don't know. Maybe because it was the right thing to do. She looked away for a moment, then whispered, They'll come. Not friends. Enemies. They want me dead. Kyle felt a chill run down his spine. So the signal wasn't calling help. It was calling danger. We need to move then, he said. The princess shook her head. I can't walk, not yet. Kyle clenched his jaw. He couldn't leave her, but staying here meant they'd both die. I'll find something to help us move, he said. He looked outside and spotted the broken parts of the transport ship. Maybe he could build something, a sled or a stretcher. As he worked, the princess watched him with tired eyes. You're human, she said. Kyle nodded. And you're Jaren, she gave a small, painful smile. Our people hate each other. Maybe that's the problem, Kyle replied. We never tried to understand each other. For a moment, there was silence between them. Then she spoke again. My name is Alira. Kyle, he said, offering a brief smile. They were no longer just soldier and enemy. For now, they were two people trying to survive. As Kyle continued to build a makeshift sled from scrap metal and wiring, the cold wind grew stronger. In the distance, a faint humming sound began to echo in the sky, like engines. Someone was coming. The wind howled outside the broken ship. Kyle worked fast, tying wires and flat metal pieces together to make a sled. He looked up often, checking on Alira. She lay still, her eyes half open, watching him without saying much. She looked weak, but her eyes were sharp. Kyle could tell she was thinking about many things. We don't have much time, he said, tightening a strap. I heard ships in the sky. If they find us here, they'll kill you, Alira interrupted. Kyle looked at her. And what about you? They already tried, she said softly. There was a long silence between them. Alira tried to sit up, but her arm shook, and she fell back with a small cry. Kyle rushed to her side and supported her back. Careful, he said. She nodded slowly. I didn't expect a human to help me. And I didn't expect an alien princess to be left behind by her own people, Kyle replied. Alira closed her eyes. They betrayed me. My own generals. They want the throne. I was in their way. Kyle sat beside her for a moment, trying to understand. So, that signal, it wasn't for help? No. It's a tracking signal, hidden in my armor. They must have activated it the moment I went silent. Kyle looked out the broken window. Then they're coming to finish what they started. Yes. He stood up and walked back to the sled. Then we need to move now. Can you hold on if I pull? You? She nodded weakly. He helped her onto the sled, using part of his blanket to cushion the metal. She gripped the side tightly as he fastened her in. As Kyle pulled the sled out of the wreck, snow began to fall. Thick white flakes covered the ground quickly. The cold wind burned his face, but he kept walking. I know a cave, Kyle said, raising his voice over the wind. I saw it while scouting. If we get there, we can rest and hide. Alira didn't reply. Her face was pale, her eyes half closed again. They moved slowly through the snow. Every step was harder than the last. The sled dragged behind him, heavy and hard to control, but Kyle didn't stop. Finally, after nearly an hour of climbing and struggling, Kyle spotted the small cave entrance near a rocky cliff. He pulled the sled inside and let out a long breath. Inside it was dark but dry. He set up a small lamp from his gear and started a heat pack. He placed it near Alira and gave her some water from his bottle. "You risked a lot," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kyle sat down beside her. "I didn't do it for thanks." "Then why?" He thought for a moment before answering. "Because war already took too much from both our sides. I'm tired of seeing people die." Alira looked at him quietly, then she spoke. "You're not like the others." "And maybe you're not like the others either," he said. She gave a weak smile. "We were taught humans are cold and selfish." "And we were told aliens like you have no hearts," Kyle replied. Funny how both sides were wrong. Turned her head and looked at the small fire. "There is a place not far from here, a hidden base loyal to me. If I can reach it, they can help." Kyle nodded. "Then that's our next stop." Before she could reply, a sound echoed outside the cave. Heavy steps crunching snow. Kyle grabbed his weapon and stood in front of her. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Alira's eyes widened in fear. The enemy had arrived. Kyle stood still, his back pressed against the cold cave wall. His weapon was ready, pointed toward the entrance. Outside, footsteps moved closer, slow and heavy, crunching over the snow. Alira stayed silent, lying on the sled. Her breath was shallow. She knew who was coming. The ones who wanted her dead. Kyle looked at her for a brief second. Her eyes met his. She gave a small nod, even though she looked too weak to move. He whispered, "If anything happens, don't move. Stay quiet." Alira didn't speak. She understood. The noise outside stopped, then a voice called out in a sharp, rough tone. The language was Jaren, but Alira translated softly. "They're asking if anyone is alive in here." Kyle didn't answer. He held his breath. A shadow moved across the entrance. Then a soldier stepped in. Tall, wearing dark armor with red marks on the shoulders. A Jaren mercenary. The soldier's eyes scanned the cave. The dim light from Kyle's small lamp was just enough to reveal part of the inside. Kyle waited in the shadows, hidden behind a rock. The mercenary stepped further in. Kyle moved fast. In one quick motion, he jumped out and grabbed the soldier from behind, covering his mouth, and pulling him down to the ground. They struggled quietly, but Kyle was stronger and determined. After a few seconds, the soldier stopped moving. Kyle dragged the body behind a rock and took his weapon. He returned to Alira, breathing hard. "That was close," he said. Alira looked scared. "There will be more." Kyle nodded. "Then we leave now." He helped her sit up and wrapped a warmer blanket around her. Then he attached ropes to the sled again. As they moved out into the snow, Kyle kept his eyes on the trees and hills around them. The path was narrow, the snow deep. Alira gave him directions in a weak voice. "There's a signal post not far," she said. "I can send a code to the base. If they're still loyal, they'll come." "And if they're not?" Kyle asked. "Then we're both in trouble," she replied. They continued through the snow. Kyle was tired, his legs sore, but he didn't stop. Alira's life depended on him now. After another hour of climbing, they reached a tall metal post hidden between sharp rocks. It looked broken, but Alira pointed to a small panel. "There," she said. "Help me reach it." Kyle lifted her gently and held her steady. She pressed her hand against the panel and a blue light blinked. Then a series of soft beeps began to sound. She spoke a few words in her language, sending the signal. "It's done," she whispered. "Now we wait." They moved to a nearby ledge and hid behind a rock wall. Kyle placed Alira down and checked her pulse. She was burning with fever. He gave her more water and used a cooling gel from his kit. "I'm okay," she said quietly. "Just tired." "You've been strong," Kyle replied. "We'll make it through." Suddenly, the sound of engines roared above them. Kyle looked up. A small transport ship was flying fast, heading toward the signal post. Its colors were not those of the enemy. Alira smiled faintly. They came. The ship landed near them. The back door opened and 3 figures in silver and blue armor rushed out. One of them removed their helmet. It was a young Zarin woman. She looked at Alira and gasped. "Princess!" Alira waved weakly. "Help! Him too," she said, pointing to Kyle. The soldiers helped lift her into the ship. Kyle stepped back unsure. One soldier looked at him and asked, "Are you the human who saved her?" Kyle nodded. The soldier hesitated, then said, "Then you come with us." As the door closed behind them and the ship lifted off, Kyle sat beside Alira, watching her rest. The danger wasn't over, but for the first time they had hope. The inside of the transport ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Kyle sat near Alira, watching as the Zarin medics worked quickly to treat her. One applied a glowing patch to her wound. Another checked her pulse with a small, scanning device. Alira lay still, her eyes closed, her breathing soft but steady. "She will live," one of the medics finally said. Kyle let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The young Zarin officer who had first spoken to him sat across from him. Her eyes studied him with curiosity and caution. "You're the human," she said. "The one who saved our princess." "Yes," Kyle replied simply. "Why?" "I don't know," he answered. "Maybe because no one else would." The officer nodded slowly. "You took a great risk. I know." The ship moved fast through the sky, crossing icy mountains and ruined battlefields. Finally, they reached a hidden valley surrounded by rock walls. A large underground base was built into the cliffs. The ship descended and entered through a wide opening that closed behind them. As they landed, soldiers in blue and silver armor waited below. They saluted when the princess was carried out on a stretcher. Kyle followed behind, unsure of what to expect. The officer led him through long halls with smooth metal walls. Zarin technology was advanced. Lights moved along the ceiling like stars and doors opened with a soft whisper. They brought Alira to a special medical room. Kyle stood outside, waiting. Hours passed. Finally, the same officer returned. "She is awake," she said. "She asked for you." Kyle entered the room. Alira was lying on a soft bed, her wounds treated and color slowly returning to her face. She smiled when she saw him. "You made it," she said weakly. "We both did," Kyle replied, stepping closer. She looked at him carefully. "The commander of this base, his name is Jorak. I believe he is still loyal, but I'm not sure." "So we can't trust everyone here?" Kyle asked. "No," she said. "The ones who betrayed me may still have spies in this base. If Jorak turns against us, we'll be trapped." Kyle thought for a moment. "Then we need to be smart." Alira nodded. "Will you help me speak to him?" "Of course." Later that day, Commander Jorak entered the room. He was tall, with gray-blue skin and eyes that showed years of battle experience. He bowed to Alira, then looked at Kyle. "You have done something no other human has ever done," Jorak said. "You saved one of our royal blood." "I didn't do it for reward," Kyle replied. "I did it because it was right." Jorak's eyes narrowed slightly. "Many will not believe that. Many still see humans as enemies." "Then let them see the truth," Alira said. "Kyle saved my life. He risked everything. He is not our enemy." Jorak stayed silent for a long time, then gave a slow nod. "Very well. I will support you, Princess, but you must act fast. The traitors will learn you survived." "I will speak to my people," Alira said. "I will expose those who betrayed me." Jorak looked at Kyle. "And you?" "I'll stay by her side," Kyle said, "until she no longer needs me." Jorak left the room, and Alira looked at Kyle with calm eyes. "You will be in danger, Kyle. The moment they know you're with me, you'll become a target." "I already am," he replied with a smile. They both laughed softly. Outside the medical room, in a dark corner of the base, a figure activated a small device, and sent a silent message into space. The message was clear. She lives, and she has a human with her. Far away in the shadows of a distant ship, cold eyes watched the message flash. The hunt was not over yet. Alira stood in front of the mirror, dressed in royal armor once again. Her wounds were healing and her strength was slowly returning, but her eyes were different now, stronger, wiser, and more focused. The pain she had faced changed her, and the human who saved her reminded her what it meant to lead with heart. Kyle watched from the doorway. "You look ready," he said with a small smile. "I feel ready," she replied. "Thanks to you." Kyle stepped into the room. "So what happens now?" Alira took a deep breath. "Now we send a message to the Empire. We expose the betrayal. If we wait too long, the traitors will take full control. And you trust Commander Jorak?" "I do. He was loyal to my father before me. If he wanted to betray me, he could have done it already." Kyle nodded. "Then let's do it." In the command center of the base, Alira stood tall. Soldiers stopped to salute her as she walked in. Some looked surprised to see her alive. Others looked proud. Jorak greeted her with a respectful bow. "Everything is ready, Princess." Alira stepped to the main control panel. A large screen lit up showing the Imperial symbol. With one tap, her message would be broadcasted to all loyal ships and leaders in the Empire. She looked back at Kyle. He gave her a small nod of encouragement. Alira touched the screen and began to speak. "To the people of the Jaren Empire," she said, her voice strong. "I am Alira, your rightful princess. I was attacked by those who claimed to protect me. They left me to die, but I survived." Her words echoed across hidden channels and secured lines. "A human saved me," she continued. "Yes, a human. One we were taught to hate. But he risked his life for mine when my own people betrayed me. This is not weakness, this is strength. It is time we see truth with clear eyes." She paused. "I will return, and I will take back what was stolen. From me, and from all of you who still believe in justice." She ended the message. The room was silent. Jorak stepped forward. "It has been sent." Alira turned to Kyle. "Now we wait." But they didn't have to wait long. Alarms rang through the base. A soldier ran into the room. "Unknown ship approaching. Fast. No signal, no response." Jorak's face turned serious. "Shields up, prepare defenses." Kyle looked at Alira. "They found us." Outside in the sky, a large black ship broke through the clouds. It had sharp wings, glowing engines, and red markings, the same mercenaries who had tried to kill her. Inside the base, soldiers rushed to their positions. Turrets on the cliffs turned toward the enemy ship. Explosions shook the valley as enemy forces began landing near the base. "We need to protect the command center," Jorak shouted. "If they take it, they'll wipe the message." Kyle grabbed his weapon. "I'll hold the entrance." Alira stopped him. "You don't have to fight." Kyle smiled. "I came this far. I'm not leaving now." He and a group of loyal soldiers moved to the front of the base. The gates opened just enough to let them outside, and they took position behind rocks and barriers. The enemy charged, mercenaries in dark armor, firing energy rifles. Kyle fired back, ducking behind cover. He shouted to the others to hold the line. Inside, Alira gave orders to seal the backup systems. Even if the command center was taken, the message would stay alive. Outside, the battle raged on. Kyle took a hit to his shoulder but kept fighting. He saw more enemy ships landing. They were outnumbered, but then in the sky more ships appeared. This time, marked with the symbol of the royal family. Reinforcements had arrived. The enemy forces hesitated. The tide was turning. Alira watched the sky from the command center and whispered, "We're not alone anymore." The battle was over. The enemy mercenaries had been pushed back by the loyal royal forces. The sky cleared, and calm returned to the valley. Alira stood on a balcony overlooking the base, the wind softly blowing her silver hair. Kyle joined her, leaning on a railing. His shoulder was bandaged, but he smiled. "We did it. he said. Alira looked at him with deep gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you. Kyle shrugged. I just did what I thought was right. For a long moment, they both looked out at the horizon. The war had taken much, but it had also given them a chance to build something. New Alira turned toward Kyle. The Empire is waiting for me to return. The traitors will not give up easily, Kyle nodded. And they'll try to stop you. But now, she said, I have proof. The truth. And a human by my side. Kyle smiled. I'm ready. A group of soldiers approached and saluted. One handed Alira a communication device. It's from Earth, the soldier said. Alira activated it. A calm voice came through. Princess Alira, Earth's leaders send their greetings. They recognize your courage and want to open talks. The war must end. Kyle's eyes brightened. That's a start. Alira nodded. A better future is possible. Days later, Alira returned to her home planet with Kyle. The people welcomed her as their true princess. She spoke openly about the betrayal and the need for peace. Many listened. Many believed. Kyle became her trusted advisor and friend. Together they worked to rebuild trust between their worlds. The bond between human and Jaren grew stronger each day. It was a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, unity could shine. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Alira stood beside Kyle. Do you regret saving me? She asked softly. Kyle smiled. Not for a moment. She laughed, a soft, happy sound. Then, she said, let's show the universe what humans and aliens can do when they fight together, not against each other. As stars lit the sky, two unlikely heroes stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are won, not with weapons, but with trust, kindness, and courage.